like it. You want a podcast like it? Podcast like it's 1999. Podcast like it. Just podcast like it. Podcast like it's 1999. Podcast like it. You want a podcast like it? 1999.
Welcome to Podcast Like It's 1999, the podcast where we talk about the films of 1999 floating in the ocean here in 2021. I'm one of your hosts, Kenny Nybart.
And I'm Phil Iskov.
And with us today is the creator and showrunner of Hacks, writer of many other shows that you love. She won an Emmy, so that I would have mentioned it, but come on.
Oh, you lied to me.
Immediately lost your trust. Jen Statsky, how cool are we for getting her?
Hi.
Hi, Jen. Thank you for doing this.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me.
I reached out to you. We were trying to set this up, and I gave you the whole list of movies and what have you. And we landed on Message in a Bottle, which we're very excited to talk about. The Nicholas Sparks adaptation. Before we get to Message in a Bottle, though, I do want to ask, where were you in 1999?
Oh, great question. So 1999, I was 14 years old. So okay. I guess where are you when you're 14? You're what, in
junior high,
ninth grade?
Maybe you're either in 8th grade or 9th grade, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And I'm old for my grade.
Oh, humble brag.
Put it out there. I'm old. So I bet I was in 9th grade. I bet I was a freshman in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I didn't catch this movie. I'll say that.
Yeah. Where were you in America? Where were you?
I was outside of Boston in a suburb called Milton, Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Where were you?
I'm from Toronto originally.
Okay.
And Kenny?
I'm from New York.
Cool.
Yes.
There you go.
South of Boston.
Were you watching a fair amount of movies and television in 99, or were you, I mean, you're 14, so I mean, there's obviously.
Well, yeah, I was, because for me, growing up, like Nick at Night was like huge. Like I was such a huge, like, Mary Tyler Moore Show, like Dick Van Dyke Show, like Get Smart, all these like old sitcoms, which is like what kind of got me wanting to write for television. So I was watching an incredible amount of television. I was watching fewer movies, I think. Mm-hmm. I wasn't as much of a movie person. I still am not. I still, watch way more TV than movies. So yeah, not a huge movie person. I mean, I like went to the movies with my friends. That was like a very 14-year-old activity to get dropped off by your parents at the movies or whatever. But yeah.
There was also, 99 was a big teen movie year. We've talked a fair amount about them and covered a lot of them, but She's All That, Cruel Intentions, American Pie.
Cruel Intentions was huge in my grade because it was so like, there's like.
You had a cool grade then.
Yeah, we had a cool grade. And it was like, two girls kiss, and it's like so about like sex and stuff. And so that was major for us in 1999.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we've covered almost all of them now, but like the spectrum from like Varsity Blues to Election in 99 is pretty amazing in terms of the various sort of things that were covered.
Like 9 out of 10 of the teen movies that anyone likes or talks about.
Yeah, I gotta say, 19, like you even just saying those two movies, I'm like, 1999 was a great year for movies.
It was.
Yeah. Well, that's why we have you on to talk about one of the best.
Yeah, and leading the pack.
We've kind of been saving this weirdly because Kevin Costner is my favorite movie star.
Okay.
And one of my favorite people.
Do you know him, or you just
Kevin?
No. But my, he's like my second father in a lot of ways. But I've never seen this film before.
Neither
this.
have
I haven't seen all of my dad's work yet. But now I have. And Jen, I have to ask, why?
Why did I? Why?
Yeah,
okay, why did
what
I
happened?
pick this, or why
That's
did I
right.
make it, or why?
No. We can talk about that later. I'm super interested because like I know your career to some extent.
Yeah.
We have mutual friends. I'll just drop it right now. Doug Mand and Nicole Shabtai. I've known Doug forever.
Oh, I and Nicole are two of my favorite people on the planet.
Great people. I knew Doug in college. Well, we didn't go to college together. We had mutual friends, and he would come down all the time. So I've always kind of known that you were a person to watch. And you've always written on very cool shows, and you currently write on a very cool show, and you picked a very uncool movie. So,
well,
what's going on?
What's going on with me? That's a great question. So, I have like a little bit of a psychological problem, which is that like I watch things I love for sure. I watch things I love, but I also love watching things that I think are bad, like so bad that they're like funny. And I don't know, all due respect to the people who made Message in a Bottle, don't know. Actually, I looked it up and the writer is like 80 years old.
Yeah.
So I don't know that they'll be watching this, which is good, maybe. But so I was like, when you guys sent the list of stuff, I was like, well, there's a lot of stuff in here that's just like really good.
Yeah.
And we could talk about how good those things are. It seemed more fun to me. Also, Message in a Bottle was, I don't know if you guys felt this way. It was a movie that I was like, always like, what is that movie? Like it's like the title is a really good title. I think it's very sticky. But so I was like, I just was very curious.
It was a hit too. Like, so it was a big movie. I remember it being a big movie.
I was reading the Wikipedia last night. It got panned by critics, but it made like 180 million at the box. It's like a huge movie.
Yeah, because of K-Cost.
K-Cost, yeah.
So you never saw this before?
Never. My first time was yesterday, October 10th, 2021.
Yeah, I watched it in anticipation of this podcast as well. And like, look, I didn't hate this movie by a long shot. I don't think this movie is bad at all.
Yeah. I thought that the 30% on Rotten Tomatoes was unfair. It's not
cruel.
It's not bad. It's like, if anything, maybe just a little by the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Minus the ending, which is horrible, which I don't know.
Very on brand for Nicholas Sparks, though. Who
correct.
Loves leaving you with some
tragic
horrendous character.
Yeah.
He thinks that's what love is.
Yeah. I do think, though, it tapped into something for me, because I rewatched, it's sort of apropos of nothing, I rewatched Bridges in Madison County the other day. The Clint Eastwood movie, Meryl Streep, which is a great movie, and I really do love that film. And I do feel like that's the platonic ideal. Like that's if you're going to take sort of a subpar piece of literature and elevate it to something, real that people can really sink their teeth into, it feels like Nicholas Sparks is just totally fine giving you like a B, right? Like he's not striving to reinvent the wheel. And I think that this movie with this cast made me think that this was going to be something perhaps a little bit more elevated than it was. I didn't hate it, but and they're all great. But
I mean, Kevin Costner has like 3 Oscars, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And Paul Newman is Paul Newman. Like it's crazy.
I mean, I think The Notebook is really excellent, and I also think
I love The Notebook.
Yeah, it's an excellent movie, and it's like one of the very few movies of the last 20 years that like is kind of iconic.
Yeah.
So
it's lasted for sure.
Yeah, either whether people like it or not, you kind of can't deny that it's made an impression. The Nicholas Sparks thing works. I mean, that movie birthed a production company, birthed 15 different adaptations of his shitty books.
What else besides it's The Notebook, what other Nicholas?
There's the best one is Remember Me with Robert Pattinson, where he dies.
That is not the best.
That's the best
that's
one.
The one where it's revealed that it's 9/11 at the end.
9/11 at the end.
That's the good movie.
It's crazy. I'm looking it up right now just to read through the adaptations of his stuff.
Yeah, there were like the ones with Miley.
A Walk to Remember. That was a big one.
Great flick.
Nights in Rodanthe. The Lucky One, The Last Song, Safe Haven, Dear John.
Dear
Pretty
John.
much every one of his books becomes a movie. That's
Correct.
wild.
Did he do the one with Channing Tatum and Rachel McAdams where
No, The Vow.
that's a good
No.
flick. That's
It is a good
one.
movie, but he
Yeah.
the worldwide gross of all of his films is $889 million. I mean, he's almost $1 billion industry. It's pretty insane. So, I mean, like, it's no joke. And all of his budgets are, here's the interesting thing, though. If I'm just looking at this on Wikipedia, Message in a Bottle had an $80 million budget. That's like a big budget.
That seems really high based on what the.
I mean, I guess you're above the lines pretty
yeah,
high,
you're above
right?
the line.
Yeah.
I guess the scene at the end, they had to move the water or whatever.
I guess. I thought the CG in this movie actually looked
The
pretty
CG
janky.
is really bad. When they're sitting on the porch and it's like the skyline, like the ocean in the back, I was like,
When they're on their night sail and they're supposed to be apparently
bad.
on a boat at night, and it just looks really, really bad.
really.
But all of his other movies are under $30 million budgets, which makes complete sense, right? $30 million, these things make 100.
That's crazy. This movie was $80 million.
That's what it says.
And it looked the way it did. This is a real like we're gonna give the stars everything. This is like double wide trailer situation. You know?
Yeah, it seems exorbitant. Actually, I'm sorry. It says 30 at another post here, so maybe it was 30. I don't know where the 80 was. So we'll assume it was, because 80 does seem exceedingly high. But either way, it makes sense.
Kevin Costner was at a weird point in his career too. He was no longer like bankable. He was almost like silly at this point. This is after The Postman. This is after Waterworld. He was like, he was a silly guy. He was like kind of a national joke.
Yeah.
But he also has 99 has a 1-2 punch from Costner, which is it has Message in a Bottle and For Love of the Game, which is the baseball movie, which we have not talked about just yet, where the whole thing is structured like 9 innings in his life, and we're jumping around in time through his romance with Kelly Preston. Sam Raimi directed it, of all people.
Okay. He's also in Field of Dreams, right?
That's sure is.
So
that's why he's Kenny's dad.
That's why he's my dad.
2 baseball movies. Wow.
3 with Bull
Bull
Durham.
Durham.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
He's
that's
the baseball guy.
That's what he did in 99 with For Love of the Game. He went back to the well. He's like, remember how much you loved me. I was in the
I'm good. Yeah.
2 baseball movies that made me your dad. And I didn't even see that movie. So I didn't see it until I was on a plane.
That's really bad. You didn't see it.
Yeah, if you didn't see it,
Tell me about it. Well, that was our bad. That was kind of the tough moment in our relationship. That was my rebellious phase.
It's fair.
And then I came back when he was in Mr. Brooks with Dan Cook. So
yeah. Sure.
Replaced
and obviously Kenny's a big fan of Yellowstone, obviously. I've seen every episode.
Yes, never miss an app.
I hear it's very good. I gotta watch.
People love it. There's a whole universe. They're building spin-offs, and anyway, it's crazy. Let me give a brief synopsis of Message in a Bottle for our listeners who might not have seen this film. During a morning jog on the beach, journalist Teresa Osborne, played by Robin Wright, discovers a bottle protruding from the sand. Inside it, she finds a heartbreaking anonymous love letter. After her paper publishes the letter, Osborne tracks down the letter's reclusive author, world-weary widower Garrett Blake, played by Kevin Costner, in the Carolinas. But as Osborne finds herself falling hopelessly in love with Blake, she becomes racked with guilt over the real impetus that is, of her visit. Message in a Bottle opened on February 12th, so it's a big Valentine's Day movie, which is another thing too, right?
Really smart.
Really smart. It opened first place against Payback, She's All That, Blast from the Past, and My Favorite Martian. Just a real murderer's row of films there. Goes on to make, as you mentioned, $120 million on a $30 million budget, 32% on Rotten Tomatoes from critics, 66% from audiences. I'm going to read a very brief clip of Roger Ebert's 2-star review, where he said, Message in a Bottle is a tearjerker that strolls from crisis to crisis. It's curiously muted, as if it fears that passion would tear its delicate fabric. Even the fights are more in sorrow than in anger, and when there's a fist fight, it doesn't feel like a real fist fight. It feels more like someone thought the movie needed a fist fight around then. The film is about a man and a woman who believe in great love. The man believes it's behind him. The woman hopes it's ahead of her. One of their ideals in life is to be somebody's true north. Right away, we know they're in trouble. You don't just find true love. You team up with somebody and build it from the ground up. A Message in a Bottle believes in the kind of love where the romantic music comes first, trembling and sweeping under every scene, and the dialogue is treated like lyrics. I mean, I can't totally disagree with Ebert's perspective on the film. I mean, he's not wrong, but I also think he's not maybe giving enough credence to the stuff that works. Like, I do think that the cast is really solid, and I think
Robin Wright, I thought, was so good.
Oh, yeah,
so
we agree.
good.
Amazing. It made me be
We were
like, oh
texting
yeah,
last
we
night.
need more Robin Wright now in 2021.
Totally. Kenny and I were texting about this because as I was watching it, I was like, she really could have been Reese Witherspoon or as Kenny said, Julia Roberts. Like, she really has. She's so charming and so winning in this. Her smiles, you're just like, I wish she smiled more in movies.
Yeah, and she like. Maybe this is what hurt her becoming one of those things. Not that those women don't seem intelligent, but she reads so smart. I mean, I know in this she's playing a journalist, but like she's got a very high status vibe.
Totally.
Part of me is like, oh, is that what hurt her?
Well,
like,
it is in a sense, because that's the reason she gets cast as the first lady in that ridiculous television show. And then she gets stuck in this, as I said to Phil, she gets stuck in the Spacey Zone, where like all of a sudden she's like playing this like very arch character.
Yeah.
And
very cold too. Like,
very cold. And like, look, she was the best part of that show. But I think people forgot everything else she was able to do. And now she's playing Wonder Woman's, like, you know, ass-kicking mom friend.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where she lands now. But, like, she's, like, so good in a movie like this. And she has these incredibly iconic roles in her past.
It's crazy.
It almost feels like people don't even talk about them.
Yeah.
Jenny Gump and Buttercup.
Yeah, it's really... Watching this, it kind of all flooded back to me a little bit how good she was, you know, in those earlier films. It's not that she's not good in everything she does. I think that
Princess Bride was her first film, you know,
which is crazy.
What was her first film?
Princess Bride was her first film.
Wow.
And she's great in it. I mean, I do think that I imagine Sean Penn has something to do with all of this as well in some way or another.
Yeah.
I was going to say that shitty thing, and like she got attached to him and then he kind of took over, and there's so much stuff with him.
There's a lot of drama there that I imagine has something to do with it.
Well, I do think that also there is this weird thing where Sean Penn, whether or not he's toxic, which he is, but that's not what I'm talking about now. In the late 90s, early 2000s, he became a big brand unto himself. And she kind of became part of that brand, which, you know, which was like kind of, you know, like thoughtful thug, thoughtful menace. And she was almost...
That's a perfect way to describe the Sean Penn genre.
And she kind of got pulled into this thing by virtue of being his wife. And I think that kind of hurt her thing as well, which is a horrible thing. And it's kind of a bad situation for everybody because, you know, I mostly think we're the victims because we were robbed of more wonderful Robin Wright performances.
Yeah. Well, it makes me think about the last name thing. Like whenever an actress takes the last name and tacks it on to her name, it always sort of feels like you don't like why, you know what I mean? Like you have it's just interesting. Like Nicole Kidman never became Nicole Cruz, even though I guess everybody knew that she was Nicole Kidman. Exactly. But like it's just interesting to me where it's like Robin Wright, you know, obviously had a great career. She didn't need Penn's name attached to hers. It's just kind of strange to me. But
so it's an interesting, like, obviously this is their personal business, but like, was that her thing? Was that his thing?
Right.
He also seems like
possessive.
Yeah. I mean, I believe he's a documented domestic abuser based on what I'm honest. So
God.
I'm like, did he force that? I don't know, man.
It's all very strange.
The takeaway is that Robin Wright is very good.
She's amazing. She's really interesting. I'm curious, Jen, about your thoughts on this. It's kind of a trope of the woman that needs to fix the man.
Yeah,
because it does feel like that's kind of in the DNA of this movie.
It's very in that zone, which is like a very annoying trope. A very annoying, like you don't really know. Like I guess you know that she has a divorce that, you know, didn't like she divorced, she has this son, but you don't know a ton about her. No. And you don't really, you're not supposed to. It's all about fixing Kevin Costner. I did, side note, I laughed out loud because my favorite piece of dialogue in the film is at the very beginning in the airport when she's handing her son. For those of people who haven't seen the movie, she's divorced. She has a son with her ex-husband, and she is handing the son off to him in the airport, to him and his new wife and new children. And he goes, "Okay, son, say bye to mom." calling someone's son. I believe no one has ever in the history of the world. Like, I don't have kids, but my parents were never like, daughter. Like, it's just so funny when those little things get past everybody. I'm like, what?
That's the worst exposition.
We know he's her son. It read so strong of like a studio note of like, people are confused. Just have him call him son.
what are they gonna think?
Yeah.
The one that always kills me of those is that when you have a brother and sister in a show, the first time they meet each other, they insist upon having the brother call the sister sis. Yeah. Like, what universe do people do that?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It's I think
God forbid we should think that they are like attracted to each other. So all right, sis.
Yeah, it is that. But like
it does feel to your point, Jen, that Teresa is who honestly we don't meet Kevin Costner until pretty deep into this movie, surprisingly deep into this film, if you ask me. Like, it's a good 20 minutes or so before we meet him. I was surprised
by that too. I was like, oh, we're really with Robin Wright for a long time.
Right. But we're with her in the same way that it almost had a You've Got Mail kind of component to me a little bit.
It's very You've Got Mail.
Right? Like, it has a little bit of that mixed in there of her just being sort of falling in love with, it's got a Sleepless in Seattle thing too, right? Falling in love with someone through correspondence and projecting all of
correspondence to another person, which is another level. At least in other, I guess Sleepless in Seattle is about another person, but You've Got Mail at least is like direct correspondence. It's pretty.
Totally.
You gotta really want to fall in love to be like this other dead chick, and
It's like the first parasocial relationship.
Parasocial relationship. It's put in a time capsule because it's quite important.
Yeah, we throw that thing in the ocean.
Put it in the ocean. I do feel like there are two things that jump out at me. The first is a message in a bottle is a very antiquated way. I understand that it's more metaphorical for Garrett.
Yeah.
But also one of the things
that's my favorite thing about the movie, by the way.
I don't hate it, but it's also it feels better in a book than it does in a movie. Is kind of my thing.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't just
buy in. Like that's it. And I know you are. To me, it's just like this. We're going on some ridiculous beach read of a movie.
Oh, 100%.
A message in a bottle is the inciting incident. I find that so lovely and charming. But that's just.
But also that the titular message in a bottle is with the title. Like, you're actually seeing a message in a bottle.
Yeah, it is very funny. Yeah. Also, in a 2021 lens, you know that the ocean is full of garbage, and that bottle is far too well preserved to wash up.
It's true. It's a beautiful bottle. It's a gorgeous
bottle. Yeah. It doesn't seem like it's made a trip from, what is it? It goes
North Carolina?
From North Carolina to the Cape?
I think so, yeah. It's quite the journey. I think my biggest beef with this film, and this is a trope, and I understand as a writer that sometimes you don't have a choice, but I hate when a main conflict is about a lack of communication, like when someone can just say something. That's exactly
what I was going to bring up. The false pretense of, well, I guess it's a lack of, it's, are we talking about the same thing? The thing I cannot stand is when a character, you're like, just tell him.
Yeah. And she comes this close to telling him, and then she backs off, and you're just like, ugh. Now I got to watch him get upset at you over something that you could have told him 45 minutes ago.
It's annoying. Good. It's really,
it's false conflict.
And this usually happens with a man doing it to a woman. So I guess it's good that's a woman doing it to a man, especially once they like have sex under false pretenses. You're like, this is getting really dicey.
to a Sarah McLachlan song, nonetheless. Too.
Yeah, oh my god,
that needle drop was
nice.
so loud and so amazingly on the nose. You bring up the sex scene, and I want to talk about this for a second because I do feel like this movie is not very sexy. It's surprisingly flat when it comes to like romantic
Very
sparks.
PG.
Right?
Yeah. I was shocked that I thought like, okay, two very attractive, like this is a sexy film. And it's not at all. They have most of it, they have like a 3-minute long marshmallow fight on the beach. That's that's
right.
like
We had 2 marshmallow fights in a row, right?
We did.
That film?
Yeah, we did.
I'm going to say something kind of controversial. These people who are only, I think, in their like 40s, were
33.
She's 33 in real life or in the movie? In
real life,
either way,
33 when she shot it.
This was considered a middle-aged love story.
Yes,
and
yes,
that is part of why I think it's so chaste. Because I think like the biggest indicator of that is the fact that they are both on their second relationships.
Yeah.
So this is considered a middle-aged love story for middle-aged people. And God forbid we should ever see these hideous old people have sex with each other. So I think that's why it was like that. Why it's more marshmallow fights and close sitting than it is like close sitting.
They sleep together, not having sex. They sleep together twice.
Yeah.
It's my whole thing too is it feels like they're kind of trying to have their cake and eat it too, which is this is a widower. This is a man whose central conflict is that he can't seem to get over the grief of his dead wife. Yeah. So I think they're trying to slow play the sex component to show reverence to the dead wife.
Oh, that's probably true. Yeah.
But then when he comes to visit her in Chicago, he's so randy that he like literally just wants to like have sex with her the second that he sees her.
He got so horny. Chicago became so horny.
Yeah, it's like, what happened? You went to the big city and now you just gotta get off.
He's like on a what's it called? A rum spray?
Exactly. Yeah. I would argue that it takes, first of all, this movie is over 2 hours. It does not need to be over 2 hours. It's
130 minutes.
It's an insane thing. And it takes an hour for them to have sex, basically. It did not need to be played out like this.
That's pretty normal for me.
Maybe if I'm like really gonna read it as an artistic decision, it's like North Carolina is so his ex-wife, his dead wife, that ex-wife is like that when he's there, it's about her, and then he removes himself from that place, and he's able to like be free of that or whatever.
Sure. That's probably what they're trying to do. That sounds right. That sounds right.
Probably also realized it was Robin Wright, and
it's like, what am I doing? Yeah,
come on, pal. Pull yourself together, pal.
She's pretty funny in this movie too. I have to say, like, I actually think it made me. I looked through her filmography. She really only has like one other comedy, and it's other than Princess Bride, but like it's Toys, and I love Toys. I know that movie's batshit, but like she's actually pretty funny in that film.
Her.
She's the love interest. She's his girlfriend in that movie. Robin Williams' girlfriend.
I remember seeing that movie when I was a kid, Toys, and being like really creeped out. I don't think I could ever watch it again.
Yeah, no, you should be. You should. That's the correct. It is. Yeah. I think it's insane. I sort of love how insane it is. Like Tori Amos did the music. It all just doesn't make any sense. Cool. It's she's great, but it's just like anyway. But Robin Wright is funny in that movie. Anyway,
I think I saw it as a kid too, and like it was one of those things where it sat wrong with me. It hit me very wrong. And
totally, it's like an unsettling feeling.
Yes.
It's a movie about toys, not for kids, is the big thing, right? Like, so you watch, and you're like, oh, it's a movie about toys. Like, I'm sure I love this as a kid, and then you watch, and you're just like, this isn't fun. I don't like anything about this.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of what I was going to say, which is I think if you accept that this movie is not for kids. Maybe there's some transgressive fun to be had, but I also watched this about 5 years ago and found it just equally just stomach churning. but I'm a kid at heart.
Yeah.
I love that.
It also sounds like we're saying message in a bottle is not for kids.
Yeah, no, we're talking about toys here. But to get back to message in a bottle,
It's not for kids either.
No.
Ileana Douglas, always great.
Always great.
I love her. Always
Want
great.
her. Yeah.
Wish she was in it more. Wish she wasn't necessarily saddled with the oversexed, snarky role.
Yeah.
That was such a 90s character.
Such a 90s trope.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Every one of these, romantic comedic dramas, which I think that these Sleepless in Seattle's kind of fall into, there was always the oversexed best female friend.
Yep.
It's
every
really
time.
Weird.
That must have been a bummer to be rooting for those all the time.
I thought Paul Newman was excellent in every scene, even though it's like a little bit of a trope, the like gruff, whatever, dad.
Dodge.
Yeah, Dodge.
What a name.
I did notice, and Kenny, I'm curious your take on this. I did notice that like Kevin Costner got a couple of like he got a Razzie for worst actor in this movie and another like derogatory award. And I thought he was fine, but there are some interesting choices.
Thank you for asking. I noticed
he was delicate. It's your dad.
I think it was a Razzie nomination.
Okay,
he didn't win. Look, he was up against a juggernaut that was Wild Wild West. So it's very hard to go up against that. But I think the other movie award show you were alluding to is the Stinker Awards.
The Stinker Award. That's what it is.
I think he did. Yeah. I think he did pretty well at the Golden Stinkers.
Yeah.
But my feeling on this is I thought Costner was excellent. I think he has. And I recently did a draft on Screen Drafts of baseball movies. So I watched Field of Dreams and Bull Durham recently, which are two.
I've recently watched Field of Dreams as well.
It's the best. It's my favorite movie, but
okay. I'm not.
I will not get emotional about it. It is not something that I can even discuss rationally. But we've
done an episode on Field of Dreams for our Patreon, so it's
okay.
So two very different performances. I think Costner does not have the most range. I think everyone kind of knows that. He is a walking ball of charm, in my opinion, and he has the almost uncanny ability to deliver exposition and throwaway lines that doesn't.
That's true.
Bother. That doesn't rankle you.
Right. That is a true thing. He's really good at that.
He does that throughout the movie where it's a very confident thing that not a lot of actors are willing to do, but to swallow these lines that are important and just trust like anybody should that the audience is listening.
Yeah.
So I think that, I think he's great. I think
he can do no wrong. Yeah.
Well, I don't like everything he's ever done.
I know.
I know. But I haven't seen some of his worst work too. But I think he's great. I think she's great. I think they have good chemistry. I like him as Paul Newman's son as well.
Good cast. Good cast.
It's an interesting thing too. When you have an actor like Paul Newman in his later years playing a dad, there's a part of me that has that little thing like, is this actor that he's playing the father to capable of standing in a scene
right.
with this legend and being the POV and being the most important character in that scene going up against Paul Newman? And like that was probably more true then than it is now. Even like this guy won Best Director for his, Dancing with Wolves. Like he was a unique kind of.
I like that you said
persona.
It as though he won an Oscar for Dancing with Wolves. You said I like the notion that anyway.
Yes, he did. Well, he did Dance with the Wolves in the movie.
He did
the Oscar. So you don't know what happened. Yeah. So I think that he really kind of holds his own with Paul Newman.
Yeah.
In a frame is really all I need. You know, like it feels like appropriate. Of course she does, because she's a really great actress. But yeah, I think Costner didn't deserve his Razzie nom.
I don't think he did either.
I don't think
he was that bad. He does the one scene where I was like, what's going on, Kevin? Is when he shows up at her hotel to invite her to dinner. The way he says, like, do you eat red meat? Steak is the best thing I do. It was a little like serial killer vibes for me. I was like, this is let's do another.
I don't disagree,
Kevin.
I thought he was quite good in this too. I think that Paul Newman, who is sort of, I mean, he's at the tail end of his career. I think the last role he has outside of Cars is Road to Perdition, which he does a few years after this,
right.
And is very good in that too. No one can throw away a line like Paul Newman. No one is sort of so effortlessly just
so good.
It's incredible.
He's the best movie star of all time.
He really, really is. And you know, obviously, you know, this movie probably isn't up to Paul Newman's standards for all intents and purposes, but like it does feel like, you know, he sinks his teeth into it. He could play this role in his sleep of like an old codger. Like it's not as though he, you know, is, but he's very, very good in it. And I felt like the scenes with him and Kevin Costner in particular, they really did feel on the level, to your point, Kenny. Like it didn't, like Kevin Costner clearly was upping his game in order to be in these scenes, but like he's just, I don't know, he brought out the best in everybody in the scenes.
Yeah. I also felt like I really believed them as father and son. Like it was
I did too.
casting, and it just like their scenes were excellent.
Paul Newman's incredible. Paul
so good.
Just incredible. He can play anything, and he has played anything and everything over the course of his career. Mm-hmm. But he did a really good job of meeting Costner where he lives.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I saw from him. I want to quickly, if you're okay with this, go to these Razzie noms because they're fun. Who was nominated against Costner? So I was wrong about who won.
Really?
Okay. Will Smith wasn't even nominated. Kevin Kline was nominated, which is appropriate. He was terrible.
What was Kevin Kline nominated for?
In Wild West. And then two guys who delivered excellent performances. This is just horrific, which is Adam Sandler, who won for Big Daddy.
He won the Razzie Daddy. For that?
Yeah, he won. Yep.
Oh, wow.
And also nominated was Schwarzenegger for End of Days. Fucking killed it in that film.
I didn't know that Big Daddy was considered bad.
It was nominated for. The worst picture nominees this year are a joke almost.
What are they?
Wild Wild West won. Big Daddy was nominated. The Haunting was nominated, which is a truly terrible film. Star Wars Episode 1 was nominated, which, you know, felt like they were just being cute. And Blair Witch was nominated, which is one of the best films ever made.
That's fucked up.
Blair Witch is good.
Blair Witch is great.
And Heather Donahue won Worst Actress, which is
That's ridiculous.
They should just jump on that. I hate the Razzies to begin with. I think the Razzies are the world's worst, but to give Worst Actress to a non-professional in a $30,000 film.
Yeah, it's so rude.
Completely defeats them.
Yeah.
It's so rude.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be punching up.
Yeah,
I would also do, of the nominees you just read, Kenny, The Haunting is unquestionably the worst of all of them.
Without question. And then Robin Williams was nominated for Bicentennial Man and Jacob the Liar and R.I.P. But sorry, man, that's yours.
Fair. Those are fair nominations.
They still do the Razzies?
They do.
Yep. Sadly, yeah. So I to get back to Costner and Newman for a second, I thought that the haircut scene, the first scene that they have together, was really was cute. I think that, to your point, they have this sort of fragile thing.
Yeah,
their relationship feels fragile, which I appreciated. I don't know. I'm curious as to what you both think of this paintings situation, Catherine's paintings that create this drama with the family.
Like, who cares?
What is this? Who gives a shit? It was just I thought it was very strange.
It's just to give him the thing that is unhealed in his past that she helps him heal. It's just like so by the numbers and boring.
Oh, it's brutal. And then like Paul Newman comes out with the painting and a broken bottle threatening to destroy the painting. You're just like,
that was good.
That was objectively good.
Yes, subjectively.
So at the near the end, when Garrett confronts Teresa about the big secret that he finds the bottle in her bedside table, confronts her with the bottle. It really, to me, hangs just a big lantern on how silly the premise of this movie is. It's tough. It's tough to do that scene.
Think of a different way for him to find the on her bedside table, the doily that also, by the way, who has that on their nightstand? Who has a doily on their nightstand? Is stuck in the drawer, and he's like, "Oh, I gotta fix this," and then it's just
you're right. This movie's bad.
Give me a break, guys.
It's really clunky, and then it leads to a fight in the rain, of course, because just a torrential downpour of rain.
Yeah, you guys are expecting too much. It's
I think ultimately this to me is just like, I liked this movie, but this part of the film, when it's all kind of coming to a head and it gets really dramatic and it just leans into so many sort of clunky, tropey things, him finding it, him confronting her, then them yelling in the rain. It's it all happens in a 5 to 7 minute chunk that you're just this is a lot.
Yeah. I'm not arguing in favor of this bad film. What I'd like to do is sometimes on our show, whether it's this or the 89 show, there are movies that were kind of critically reviled for being on the tail end of certain tropes and ideas. And when we watch them, it's like, well, I didn't just watch 5 years of the same thing over and over again. This is pretty good in a vacuum. Yep. This to me is almost the opposite, where we are now on the tail end of 20 years of these tropes, being burned into our brain and hating them very deeply. But this, I would argue that at the time, not that this was super fresh, but that this is, the beginning of this wave of these type of movies that were prevalent.
The first Nicholas Sparks movie, yeah.
Right, that were prevalent throughout the 2000s and became something that everyone kind of has had more than enough of. So I tried to kind of look at it through that lens, which was more look, this isn't breaking new ground. This isn't super impressive, but I don't think this is a victim of riding the wake.
I agree that this is the tip of the spear. This is the first of, and again, it's not even that that I was watching these scenes and I was thinking, because I actually tweeted about watching this film, and someone came at me on Twitter about Nicholas Sparks is great and I fucking love this movie, and I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. I mean, you're more than entitled to enjoy these films. It's just, I think that it scratches an itch, and there are people that like to turn their brains off and watch a cheesy romantic movie, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I have a hard time doing that sometimes, and I think this film, in that particular portion of it, had that issue for me. I would also say too, I don't know why you invite your potential new girlfriend to the christening of a boat that you've named after your dead wife and giving a speech about how much you love your dead wife. It feels
your choice.
It's a bad look, and you shouldn't be surprised if she's not into it.
Yeah, man, that ending, we're getting
crazy.
Towards the ending.
Yes. Yeah. We're at the end. Yeah. It also, so just for our audience to understand, there's basically Garrett decides that he's written a letter that he's
hold on. Can we one thing that happens before that drove me insane is she comes to this boat thing. Like you just said, it's all about Catherine, his dead wife. She realizes, he is not ready for this relationship.
Yeah.
But then he does go to her at the house and say no, stay. He makes a very he's stay, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, no, you'll come to me when you're ready. And I'm watching it and I'm like, but he's coming to you now.
Yeah.
Just talk. Do it. What are you doing? And then at the end killed me.
Well, because you're absolutely right that it's treading in this weird kind of muddy waters, because what it wants is the big tragic ending, and it's kind of twisting itself into pretzels in order to get there.
Yeah.
But they have this sort of so first of all, he invites her to the christening. She goes to the boat thing. Why he invited her to do what he did is whatever. They have this conversation. He says, I don't want to let you go. And she then says, then don't. He has a big sort of fight with his dad where his dad's
that should have been the end of the movie, right?
It should have been the end of the movie. Yeah, exactly. Then he has a big sort of, his dad basically says, you need to grow up. You need to man up, like move on with your life. You can't just be, grief stricken your whole life. He writes a letter, decides he's going to get on his boat. He's going to, I don't know why he gets on his boat. I don't know where he's going.
He can't sail. He's going to like some point where, and he said, I'm going to say goodbye to Catherine.
With the message in a bottle. The guy's got a bit and he's sticking with it. That's
this
basically
guy has, he's like, this has worked well for me. Keep doing it.
I think he has a misunderstanding of the afterlife.
I agree.
Yes.
Yeah.
He may be a flat earther, though. He might be.
Yeah.
So he gets in his boat, and there's a storm, and he sees another boat with a family. It's a husband. I think it's a son or a daughter. I can't remember. And his wife, and he tries to save all of them. He saves the father and the kid, but he goes back to try to save the wife, and they both drown. And it doesn't look great. As we mentioned, the special effects are pretty shitty.
It's such a, they're in a wave pool.
It's crazy, right? And it's like The Perfect Storm comes out literally the next year, which shows like you can do this well if you try.
Yeah.
But so then we don't see him die. We just see him go underwater and try to save this woman. And then Paul Newman calls Robin Wright at work, breaks the news to her at work. They're doing the best they can with this melodrama, but I felt for Paul Newman and Robin Wright post Garrett's death. It was definitely they were really. But
to your point, they don't show that. And then when he calls, he's like Garrett went down. He doesn't explicitly say he's dead. So the whole time I'm going like, okay, he's not really dead. He's going to be like in the hospital or whatever. Yeah. And then he just is dead.
Yeah. It's an abrupt ending too, in terms of like you get
Nicholas Sparks doesn't keep both lovers alive. That's his thing.
You get some VO from Robin Wright about love and I don't know, something. And
life,
it's also just like it does feel mean to Teresa's character, right? If we're supposed to think
so awful, it's
right?
terrible. Her life sucks.
It's like she's the audience.
Yeah.
We spend all this time with her up top. We're invested in her trying to find love. She's in this kind of shitty situation in a divorce and watching her husband with a new woman who, by the way, we find out he cheated on her. That whole situation. So you're just like, Teresa's just this emotional punching bag. Yeah. She finally meets a guy who she thinks she likes. Sure, I guess this guy seems fine. Whatever.
Well,
come on. He is Kevin Costner. So there's that. But it all just feels really sort of unfortunate to her character. I mean, it's just an unfortunate tragedy that didn't need to be.
Yes, like I don't know what the point of this movie is. Like, what is what are you saying? I guess you're saying seize the moment when it's in front of you because he should have just not let her leave when she comes. But it's like very.
I don't know what the theme of this movie is.
It obviously has a point of view problem because she is ostensibly the protagonist, but he is the one the movie's more concerned with. He's the one with an arc. She has no arc. And that's a problem. That's a problem when you have with a character that has an arc is A, not your protagonist, and B, dies. There certainly is a story in this person who was only in my life for a short period of time taught me how to love again or open my heart again, or whatever it is. I can't think of an example, but I feel like they're all over the place. And that's not what happened here. And part of it is because of what you guys were hitting on, midway through this podcast, which is the central kind of conflict of this movie is her withholding the information. So what does she learn? Well, maybe she learned not to be disingenuous in her job as a reporter.
It's a generous interpretation.
I'm not even trying to be. I'm trying to be. I'm trying to be condescending
Pragmatic.
Towards the movie. I'm trying to be patronizing towards this film that actually got made. But
it does. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Jen.
No. I was like, maybe that's it. Maybe it's like we're supposed to feel good that she finally is like writing for the paper, but that also never seemed like a goal of her. It's not like they could have given her the tiniest arc, which is like, I want to write, but I'm scared to. So I'm in research, but then I'm going to finally do it.
The thing that sort of jumped out to me, and I have not seen that many Nicholas Sparks movies, but it does feel like all of his movies sort of say the same thing, which is that love is great. And even if you only have it briefly, you should embrace the fact that you had it at all. And I don't necessarily, I don't subscribe to that notion. But I do think, I think that there's something very oddly condescending about it. You know what I mean? That there is something very sort of patronizing. Now, again, I don't think he intends for it to feel that way, but like watching this film, there were times where it was like, if I was a person that loved these type of movies, would I feel catered to, or would I feel as though this movie was mocking me?
Why did let's just break this out a little bit? Why do you think people love these movies?
Well,
what do you think it is about these films that
people are lonely and they want to believe in love?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's got to be. Let's be. I'm a little more generous than that.
I don't mean to be shitty about it, but I just think that there is, right? Like, I think that these type of films do tend to speak to people that want to believe in a love that transcends some sort of, even Ebert says it in his review, right? There's an idea, there's a people wanting big, cheesy, romantic things in their, Taylor Swift, who I love, but what I mean? Like,
but I love big, cheesy, romantic things.
So do I. Yeah.
This is always punctuated. His shit's always punctuated with tragedy.
Yeah.
Yes. What is that thing that people are drawn to?
I guess you could say that, it reminds people, like, for example, this is a Valentine's Day movie. If you are in a relationship, in love, it reminds you to savor it while it's still here. Sure. Like, I think that would be what you walk out of the theater on Valentine's Day seeing this movie. You're like, wow, I'm like, thank God my husband Dan is still alive.
yes,
that's like what you're savoring, I guess. Which, I guess is a nice point, maybe.
I'll throw out
we're all such romantics on here.
I'll throw out a dark interpretation, which I think is kind of playing out what you guys are working with here. He just gives you the good part and calls it a day, because every movie that's about romance, not every movie, but most movies are about the courtship, right?
Yeah, it's just
and then they get together, and then the movie ends, and then they inevitably wind up in the situation where no one makes movies about happy married couples. You make movies about married couples that are having problems and hopefully work through them.
That's true.
Because marriage is hard. He just says, "Fuck it. This is the good part. This is the romantic part." And let's be left with that memory forever, as opposed to the part after you get married and then you have kids. And I'm not going to go too much more into it because I'm a married person and my wife occasionally listens.
Yeah, as a single person on here, I'm just going to assume that you guys know what you're talking about. So.
Yeah, that's a very good observation. That is probably it, right? It's like it's like put this in like a fantasy genre where it's like relationships never get hard. Mm-hmm. They get hard with this tragedy, but even that, the tragedy allows the relationship to be preserved in this idyllic, like perfect, no conflict, just falling in love, infatuated with the person. I mean, they do have a fight. They have one fight, which is about her dishonesty. But other than that, it's like, it's all perfect until it's gone.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
It does feel like it's kind of preserved in amber in this beautiful kind of thing, which is, I imagine, very intentional. And also, I mean, listen,
super nasty if you really think about it. It's super cynical. It's a really horrible fucking way of looking at life and love and everything. But like, that is, I do think that is the fantasy he's selling, Jen. I think you're agree. I mean, I think I agree with what you're saying.
So as we wrap this up, Jen, at the end of every episode, we do a rating of these films from 0 to 99, 0 being the lowest, obviously 99 being the highest. We do it twice. We do it once before the podcast, like what you thought going into the podcast, and then what you thought after the podcast, if the podcast changed your opinion. I came into this podcast, I gave it a 60. Which I think is probably maybe a little too generous. I after this podcast, I think I'm closer to like a 55. Like I don't want to say that this film that you shouldn't watch this movie. I think that the three leads make this movie absolutely watchable, and I think that that I expected this movie to be a lot worse than it was, and it turned out to be, you know, above average, decent romance, I guess. The ending I had a pretty significant issue with, but ultimately didn't hate this. I'd probably give it a 55. What would you say, Jen?
I think coming in, I thought it would be like a 40.
Sure.
I had lower expectation. After watching, I'm going to give it a 49.
Sure. Okay.
It still doesn't get in, like, to me, your rating system, and you have obviously more experience with it, but to me, once you get into the 50s, I'm starting to get into, this is like, there's really good things about this movie. Like things I can point to and be like, that is like, I hadn't seen that before. That's interesting. Right. This is still like nothing. And again, like you're saying, we have years and years of seeing this genre now, but there was nothing that I was like, oh, that's a really like new, interesting idea. I didn't see that at all. And
you feel that? Yeah.
So part of me is like, but like you said, credit to the cast, extremely watchable. Like, I think the cast actually really helps this movie to 100%. Be what it is versus it could be really, really bad. So I think 49, not quite the 50 zone of like getting to
quality.
49.
Okay.
You know, it's interesting because we saw a very similar horrible movie called The Love Letter. That was.
Do you know The Love Letter, Jen?
No.
It was Kate Capshaw. And who were the men in it?
Oh, it was Everett Scott, Tom Everett Scott.
Ellen
DeGeneres is in it.
Yes, Ellen DeGeneres is the oversexed best friend. And I celebrate her entire catalog. Yeah. And it was a very bad movie.
Okay.
And it was it almost suffered a little bit from having greater ambition than this movie.
It does,
which I think it does, and I think it misses the mark wildly. But you can tell what it's going for. Whereas this movie has almost no ambition. There's ambition. There's no ambition thematically. There's no ambition on the page structurally. There's no ambition with your characters or the relationships. There is a modicum of ambition when it comes to the directing of the film. Sure. But the fact that it has no ambition makes it worse and better at the same time. I gave it a 68 before the podcast.
Okay.
After the podcast, I'm going down quite a bit. I'm going to go down to a 58.
Okay.
The 50s are generally for me the harmless zone.
Yeah.
Where there's nothing going on here that makes me want to tell you to watch this movie, but I don't want to put it below 50 and basically say you are a bad movie. 49, I think, is very brave. by the way. I think that's
It's a solid score.
We rarely, if ever, have guests who go in that 49 area. I do it a lot. I do it a lot because I really, I really like making that point.
I think you're exactly right that the 50s are good. It's harmless. It doesn't, this movie doesn't make me mad, but I drop it 1 point below that because it does make me mad that the female character doesn't get any arc of her own and is just there to service the main story. Correct. So that's why I'm like, oh, you dropped into the 40s.
Which is completely fair.
And I honestly thought about going even lower. And when you said 49, I almost stole it from you. But I did in the moment, I did enjoy the movie. And I think it's very clear that I was a little too generous before. But
yes.
Yeah.
As was
I don't know. It's fine.
It's
fine. Message in a bottle.
Yeah, I'm very sensitive to movies. A lot of times I watch things and they make me angry in the moment. This movie never made me angry in the moment. I was more just like, okay.
Yeah. So next week we're covering. I don't know if you've seen the film, Jen. Ride with the Devil. Do you know this film? Yeah. The Ang Lee movie. Ang Lee made a Civil War Western with Tobey Maguire, Jewel, and Skeet Ulrich. It's something. We have Chris File on from This Had Oscar Buzz, who came on to talk about the movie with us. Do you have any Tobey Maguire thoughts, Jen, while we have you?
I do. Because
feel free to keep them to yourself. This is a very popular podcast.
I do. And click.
Yeah, I may want him to attach to something in the future.
That's right.
It's true.
Careful. My really only thought was seeing the Sorkin movie about the poker.
Molly's Game,
Molly's Game, and reading that Mr. X is him, and that he very was kind of very. There was some story of him bringing a machine, like a card shuffling machine or whatever, but also
sounds right.
charging her or something or not. I forget what it was, but it was a very funny story about him. So that's really my only take. I like Pleasantville from what I remember.
I love Pleasantville, and we talk about this on the episode. We love Wonder Boys and Ice Storm. These are great movies.
Ice Storm.
Yeah.
But I will say this, though. We talked about this on the episode a little bit, too. But the Molly's Game thing that you bring up triggers the, oh, right, he's in the Pussy Posse vibe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That it's you're like, oh, right. You can never really shed your Pussy Posse credentials. It's just what it is.
Yeah. No, he seems happily married. His wife has a great jewelry business. She's very...
Oh, no. Kenny's shaking his head saying she's not happy.
His wife is a very successful jewelry designer.
They're not together anymore.
Oh, they're divorced?
Yeah, she is a very successful jewelry designer. That's true.
They're
not together anymore. Yeah.
Or is this inside gossip?
No. This is public.
Oh, wow.
It'd be amazing if Kenny's giving us an exclusive.
Straight up, it's not impossible. You never know. But let me see.
Having an affair with
Jen McGuire, with Jen Meyer. Let's see. They got divorced last year.
Okay.
Wow.
A pandemic issue, but
COVID really distracted me from the thing.
No, totally.
Yeah, you took your eye off the ball, which we all kind of did. But Toby, as I said in the episode, I think for me, it's a lot like where you stand, Jen, which is the Molly's Game thing really, it kind of validated what I've always kind of thought about him, which is he doesn't like playing beta males. He doesn't think he is a beta male. He thinks he is an alpha male.
He does.
And post Spider-Man, he plays nothing but but tough little ass kickers, and every one of those films makes me want to stick my head in the fire. So,
but more than anything, Jen, we want to thank you so much for coming on and talking about Message in a Bottle with us.
Happy to come back whenever. Happy to
thank you so much.
Movies. I have no other reason to.
Oh my god, we will gladly when you are done writing Hacks season 2, and we would love to have you back again. If you're not watching Hacks, what are you doing? It's one of the best comedies on television. I watched it twice in a row.
I got my parents to watch it yesterday. It was pretty exciting.
There you go. It's wonderful. It's currently streaming on HBO Max. But again, thank you so much, Jen, for coming on. We truly appreciate it.
Me.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Thanks, guys.
Can we send Jen the 89 list?
Yeah.
That would be
Jen,
fun.
if you would want to come on for an 89 movie possibly in the future, we would absolutely.
Yeah. Those are
good
I was
movies.
4 when those were out. So I definitely haven't
We were
seen-
9. I was 9. Kenny was 8.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Jen.
yeah. Thanks for having me.
Podcast like it's 1999. Podcast like it. You want a podcast like it's 1999.